from Baltimore, Maryland, and I've had the pleasure to do an amazing project which I call the African American San Francisco Narrative Quilt Project. This project, as you can see around me, consists of going into the community, working with seniors, working with elders from various parts of the city. Main concentration, George W. Davis, which is in the Bayview, and also working at Queen Ada Senior Center, which is in the Western Addition. This project allowed me to pull portraits, stories, images together to produce these quilts with the aid and the help of the seniors helping me.
I came from Florida in 1959. When I left Florida to came to California. And when I came to California, on my way out here, I hitchhiked all the way from Florida to San Francisco.
Wow.
And it took me a week, 2 days, and 1 night to get here.
I was 127 of February.
And what advice do you give young people for turning 100 years old? Any advice you'd like to give to young people?
No, I wouldn't, because the thing that what I really would advise the young people to do is advise you do. Take the world as you find it.
Yes.
That's all I'll give tell the world. Each day you don't know what's going to happen, and life is out there for you, and you might as well realize that life is out there for you, because no one don't know what's in store for you. Makes no difference who you are. So that's all I have to say.
Just living in the Fillmore. The first house was on Golden Gate between Fillmore and Steiner, and I loved the house. With my aunt and everybody lived in one big house.
Have you noticed any changes in the Fillmore compared to when you were growing up? What's the difference?
Yes, a lot of changes. And it's where in 1958 we moved on McAllister Street past the Visadero, and that's when it was a change from before. All my friends and everything.
Would you like to see anything change with this area now compared to the way it was back then?
Well, I live every day to the fullest, so that's how I am. I'm not worried about yesterday or tomorrow. Wow.
There were so many things that I learned from the seniors in particular. Number one, I learned patience. They say patience is a virtue. It truly is. I have very little patience. I like to make things go quick. And working with the seniors, working with the elders, they really forced me to slow down. When I wanted to just go and work with somebody who's 100 years old or even 90 years old to come in and help me produce that quilt, they would say, "Baby, slow down, let's get it done, but we're gonna have to do it this way." So I had to really learn how to readjust my thinking with the process.
Fillmore community. I arrived in San Francisco in 1972, and I lived at the Pickwick Hotel. I moved, not lived, but I actually, my hotel was down at the Pickwick Hotel, and I was new. I didn't know anyone. I had just arrived on an impulse. I'm going to California, you know what I mean? Didn't know where, and then, discussion-wise, a friend of mine said, San Francisco's cool. You need a car in L.A. So I said, all right, I'm going to San Francisco. And like I said, I arrived at the airport, and they asked the taxi driver about a place, and they said Pickwick was cool. Went there, ventured into the Fillmore, and never left. I wound up on the Visadero and Fulton. Family cleaners downstairs, upstairs, black taxi company, the brown taxi company next door, which was hilarious itself, listening to all the calls and the comments that the taxi cab drivers had with the passengers. It was magnetic. That's really would say it nailed where I'm going to stay. Listening to those conversations with this dispatcher and the taxi drivers, story within itself. Worked around and found a little job in this hospital. To get me, had to, money was getting short. Got lazy for a minute. Found a little gig in the hospital, meeting people at the hospital, somewhat befriending me. And, the rest is history in a sense, because I'm an investigator anyway in terms of knowledge-wise, want to know. And meeting these people at the hospital who led me to different areas in the city was all I needed. The rest of it is knowing who was who, the shot callers of the community, and I'm saying some heavyweight people. I ain't talking about doctors, lawyers, you name it, all of them ate at Mozelle's. This was on Fillmore, and across the street from me, actually, Fillmore and Fulton was this place where everyone ate, from your educated people down to your janitor ate at Mozelle's. And that's where I hung out at. I hung out there just meeting people, every day about 12 o'clock, I would go to Mozelle's. Lunchtime, because I worked up the street from the restaurant. The hospital wasn't that far. And the rest of it is history. To this day, they have a photograph of me on the Fillmore street there. And I'm so proud to be on a building poster on a pole, knowing whose footsteps I'm walking in, be honest with you. The folks that made contributions to the Californian, beyond California, but we're talking about Willie Brown, met him there. You name the folks, I met them. And to be somewhat identified with that, I can't really explain how proud I am, because I know what black folks came through the film. I mean, some shot callers that were just so impressive. The determination, the intelligence of the people that I met here in the Fillmore. And, like I say, the rest of it, I just, continue to go to their meetings, and I wanted to know who was doing what was going on in the black community in San Francisco. This was in the 70s, like I said. And, like I said, I'm proud. Every day I walk down the Fillmore, the spirit of those people walks with me.
Yes, my name is Alonzo Menelik Abdul Rahim Walker. My brother and sisters were born in Atlanta, Georgia, along with my mom, my auntie, my grandmother, and my dad. But my dad came out here to work in a shipyard during the 40s to support the war efforts. And he sent back to Atlanta for my brother, my two sisters, my mom, and my mother to come out here. And I was born here in San Francisco. San Francisco, African Americans couldn't buy property. So after my mother passed in 56 or 57, my father was able to buy a house, or at least have a house built from the ground up in Bayview, Hunters Point area of San Francisco on Shafter Street. Prior to that time, we lived in Hunters Point, in my 57 Navy Road, Building 18, Section D, Valencia 65525. So, and after my mother passed, my father, he was able to buy a property, buy some land, and he I had a house built from the ground up on Shafter Street, which at that time The house cost him $17,500 to have a 3-bedroom house built from the ground up, and to show you how the prices of homes have increased just in the last, I would say, 8 to 10 years. The increase of the properties in Bayview Hunters Point has ballooned to astronomical levels, prices that no one would ever thought 20 years ago or 15 to 10 years ago that a house would cost you that much, particularly in Bayview Hunters Point, because we had that that label put on us as being a dangerous and predominantly African American populated area in San Francisco. But now for that very same house, my sister, she has the house now, and that very same house has been appraised for $1.something million.
My name is Claude Carpenter. I was born in the Bayview Hunters Point neighborhood in 1945. Being raised here all my life with all the grassroots families, the original families that was here during the time that our parents worked in the shipyard. We were all raised together. And so it kind of like as we were growing up, I couldn't think of any place I'd rather be right in my own neighborhood where I was born. So I spent my whole life here in the Bayview Hunters Point community. I became a political activist in 1971, because I had this connection with God, and I wanted to do something in the neighborhood. So what I did is I came in as a volunteer and started volunteering time with the Model Cities organization. Then in 1973, they hired me into a position, and we were developing 2 programs. We didn't have any youth programs when Model Cities first started. So we developed young community developers and the youth park. Those were the first programs that Model Cities had to deal with the young people, because I felt that it was so much liking. We didn't have any activities or anything for our young people, and everything was kind of like going bad. I mean, you have to have something constructive for them to do. So as a political activist, none of our recreation facilities in Hunters Point was open. So what we did, we went to Pelton Junior High School, and we took the teachers on a tour, and we showed them all the recreation facilities, both gyms, and all the parks was closed. So that's why our children were acting up in school. They didn't have anything to do after school, and then through that process, we were able to get the gym, both gyms remodeled, and then later on, they started adding different facilities. And right now in Hunters Point, we have the best facilities in the city of San Francisco. The only thing is so many of our African Americans been gentrified out of the city, so there's not that many left. But we do have the best recreation facilities, and we have the best parks in the whole city. So I was a part of that process as a young man. I was involved in the designs of the parks and the slides and the soccer field, the tennis courts, everything that they have in Youngblood's Coleman Park. I was involved as a political activist on the Joint Housing Committee. And I spent 8 years on the Joint Housing Committee, and 3 of those years I spent as the chairman. And then as the chairman, I introduced affirmative action. I set up affirmative action committee. I started shutting down and monitoring the construction sites so that they would start hiring apprentices from Bayview Hunters Point, because we didn't have any skilled journeymen. So we had to start off as apprentices. And like I told them when they first started hiring apprentices, 3 years from now, we're going to have journeymen. And that came to pass. The next thing you know, in 1984, we were opening up construction companies. One of the companies was Southeast Electrical, started by James Richards. Another company was JUKE Plumbing, because JUKE Norman started a plumbing company. And then me and and a young lady named Barbara Banks started BNC Painting and Decorating. Alan Jordan started a landscaping company. And then there were some other black contractors. And anything they did in Hunters Point, they couldn't do unless they used us as contractors. So we started building and training other young people how to do the different trades. We did the Bayview Plaza. We were involved in the whole India Basin project, starting with the post office. The post office was one of the first things that we bought the India Basin. And once the post office was there, then other businesses wanted to be a part of India Basin. So all of that was under something that I implemented, working with the older generation. Because what we did when we came in as young men, we worked right with the elderly women. So we wasn't pitted against each other. They had their own projects that they were working on. But our projects was economical development. It's just getting our people involved in the money that was going to be spent in our neighborhood. And so we came up with our own concept of how we were going to do it. It wasn't easy. It was like pulling teeth. We set up a meeting with Mayor Moscone back in '77. And when Mayor Moscone met with us, one of the things he did is he issued certificates for the people that was in the projects, because they were remodeling the projects and they vacated the whole housing authority in Hunters Point. So we felt that they wasn't going to bring them back. So we asked Mayor Moscone to issue them certificates, and he did. And they were able to return back into the neighborhood. And then when they started building the homes, we were alerting our community that if we don't upgrade our economical standards, there's no way we was going to buy a home. So that's why it was so important for us to get involved in economical development, to give our people an opportunity to go into careers where they will earn middle income. In construction, everybody in construction earned middle income, and that's not only the only careers we stirred our people in. We stirred them into the nursing careers, and some of them are licensed nurses today, ready to retire. We have people that never worked, that went into working for Department of Education and retired, bought homes right in Hunters Point, and their kids are in college today. So we had to come up with a way of making sure that we wasn't going to be left behind. And my mother taught me, ask and you will receive. So everything that we did, we not only asked for it to happen, we demanded.
I'm one of the founders of this cultural center back in 1970, 74, 75. We petitioned yesterday to have this building set up Afro-Americans. At that time, it was called African Americans Cultural Center. Now it's called African Center, but this is what I did a long time ago, in 1974, about 74, 73, with Senator Feinstein, yes, damn it, Jim Larkin, John Holt, yes, damn it, everybody that you see, yes, damn, everybody who's named, yes, damn it, on this building. We all did it at that time in 1974.
Originally from Panama Canal Zone, Central America.
Very nice. And what's your name, sir?
My name is Oscar Reese, R-E-E-C-E.
And what was it like when you first came to San Francisco?
When I came here, the 1st of August, 1954, it was cold. And I got married in 1957 and lived in Hunters Point on Ingalls and Navy Road for 2 years. And I was an employee at French Hospital for 35 years.
Is the city very different now compared to when you first got here?
Oh, it's way different. Even Hunters Point is different now.
What was it like when you first got here?
It was better than now. There are a lot of things you could have done in those years back in 57, 58 that you can't do now.
Juanita Jackson. Baby on the swing. What was a big difference? We were able to, it was much love in the community. Neighbors was neighbors, friends was friends. We didn't have guns out. We fought one another, but 10 minutes later, we was friends with more love, you know, in the community. No one claimed the street. They claimed sisters and brothers and one another. You know, it was more love. It was a big difference because it was more warehouses. Back then they had the Fairfax, Galvez, but they had the meat packing firm. The slaughterhouses down there is no longer there. It's more homes. All those factories, homes are there now. People living on those streets, different streets. It's a big difference compared to 50 years ago.
And is it anything, any hope or any change that you'd like to see in the city now? What would you like to see as far as changes in the Bayview?
Better way that people could lower these housing prices so people can afford to live. Better things for the homeless. More love and empathy in the community itself. Because it's not a lot of that. There's a lot of people that have it, but it's not a lot shown. You know, that's what it's needed, not just Baby Hunters Point, everywhere.
So can you tell us your name?
My name is Linda Mack Birch.
And where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
When did you come to San Francisco and what community did you move to?
I came to San Francisco. My husband and I relocated with our 4 children to San Francisco in September of 1987, and we lived in the Bayview community.
What was it like and what did you think about it when you first got here to this community?
It was interesting. I think that coming from a small city into the big city, if you will, there was a lot of things that were kind of strange to me. There was a lot of poverty that I saw. There was some people. There was a lot of poverty. There were some people that I saw struggling with a lot of addictions, which really stood out for me because, you know, on TV you kind of see California. You think about, you know, the historical aspects of people coming here for opportunities, and I saw people struggling as well as I saw a lot of people doing well. So there was some disparities, but there was also some people actually thriving in Bayview.
Have you noticed any changes in your community?
Yes, I've noticed a lot of changes in Bayview. There's more diversity. When we moved here, it was not as diverse as some other parts of the city. So now there's definitely a lot of more diversity in Bayview. There's a lot more opportunities, such as a lot of businesses. The T train is the biggest thing that I noticed. 3rd Street was a little bit wider, and now with the T train it's a little different. I think there's a lot of awareness of the challenges in our communities, and there's a lot of people that want to see things get better for all people, not just those people that are able to own homes or who have nice cars and nice homes, but for everybody, so that everyone can achieve.
Thank you. And is there anything that you'd like to see happen in the city or any changes you'd like to see?
Of course, there's a lot of changes I'd like to see. I'd like to see people be helped and healed of all of the things that they're dealing with. There's still a lot of people that are oppressed and depressed. I'd like to see more opportunities for people that are dealing with addictions, that are people that are struggling with poverty. There's a lot of homeless people. I'd like to see a lot of changes in terms of health so that everyone can at least be able to be a little bit more healthier in terms of healthier with their finances, healthier with their lifestyles, and healthier just in general with whatever opportunities are available to them.
My name is Priscilla Neal. Growing up in San Francisco, I remember my most favorite time was the first time it snowed. And I was going to Jedediah Smith School in Hunters Point. And I ran all the way home because of it being snowing here in California. I was so happy. I was so happy. And our teachers were not like the teachers of today. They really cared about the students. And so we used to have fire drills and whatever was necessary for children to be safe and protected. They did it, but that's not of today's time. Things have changed so much, and because of the inspiration of the teachers that I had, I became a teacher. And I worked for 38 years in San Francisco School District as a teacher, and I enjoyed my job. And I wish I could still work that time, but the doctor had to take me off from working. But I thank and praise God for the time that I had working with children. That's so very important and very inspirational.
Kathleen Richards. I came here in 1968. Actually, it was the day after Christmas of 68. It was during the time of the hippies, the flower power children. It was that was in the midst of all that going on. So it was quite a culture shock for me, quite a shock. Coming from Massachusetts, we hadn't gotten into anything in my town. There was nothing like that going on. So when I saw this, I didn't really know what to think. I was kind of a little scared, actually, because I didn't know why people were just walking. They weren't crossing like in the crosswalks. People was just sort of coming out of, it was the Fillmore West. It's not, of course it's been gone, but down there on Market and Van Ness. And I was in a taxi going to where my husband was. He was in a hotel on Market Street. And I got really scared because the cab, like the cars couldn't go because people was just walking everywhere and was, with the long hair, the whole hippie look. And I didn't know what was going on. So it kind of scared me. And when we got to the destination, which was only about maybe 3 blocks away from that area, I wouldn't get out of the cab.
Wow.
So the cab driver had to go in to the hotel. He got the manager, and the manager got my husband, and to come outside. So that's when I got out of the cab. Because I was just scared. I didn't know what was going on. It was just a whole different experience for me. So,
what do you think about, have you noticed a lot of changes? What do you think about the changes, or do you notice changes in San Francisco?
Oh, definitely. It's tremendous changes. That's a long time, from 1968. Yes, it's been many, many changes. In my own neighborhood, and then also just in the city at large. I've been mostly in Visitation Valley, but for a period of time, we lived in Hunters Point, a very short time, and it's just been some sad changes. I used to shop a lot in the Mission area on Mission Street when my older kids was very young, and all that is gone. There's no more real, true Mission Street with the indigenous people of that area. They're all gone for one reason or another. A lot of it now is, of course, is gentrification.
Yeah.
They've been put out of their places and burned out and priced out and whatever other tactic, to get them out of that area. And now, when I go on Mission Street, it's like, I feel like I'm in another city.
Wow.
Because all the real, true feeling of being in that area was almost, when I first came here, it was almost like I was in Mexico.
Wow.
With the little stores, the little produce stores and clothing stores and restaurants, and it was just a whole different feel. It was really exciting. It was almost like you could feel the vibration in the air, you know, the music and the colors of the, you know, there'd be piñatas hanging in front of mostly all the grocery stores, you know, and was just colorful and warm, and it was just really great. And now it's like watered down. It's, you know, I mean, the only thing, if someone came here that I knew, all I would take them to see on Mission Street is there's a lot of murals, you know, and that's beautiful to see because people are still doing their artwork on the outside, you know, on buildings and things.
I'm gonna cut it.
Okay, my name is Robin Bill. I work at the Western Addition Senior Center. I've been here for 28 years almost. I started off as a bookkeeper, and right now I am the program director. It's been a pleasure working here. I've seen so many of our African American people in this center, but right now, for me, just noticing that there's not too many more African Americans in this area, not when I first started working here. We have a lot of Asian and Russians, other populations here in the city. It's hard to see, you know, when I started here like 20-some years ago, to see that this center here was supposed to be like an African American center doing the African American culture. And right now we are a diverse center. There's nothing wrong with being a diverse center, but it's just it saddens me so much because I haven't seen really too many of our people, African Americans, in this community. It would be nice to have some of them come back, and I know some of them have aged and their families move them out because you can't really afford to live here in San Francisco. The rent is it's really high. You know, so it's hard for people. Even myself, I moved from over here like 15 years ago. So it would just be nice if people could, if the rent was a little cheaper, where people can really come back into the Fillmore, because the Fillmore was predominantly African American for us. Just seeing our people around here, seeing them doing well, seeing them prospering and all that. When you walk up and down, you had a whole lot of businesses here, people with their dress shops, a lot of entrepreneurs here. So,
interestingly enough, I got to the Fillmore in San Francisco in an interesting way, but probably not. I don't know, not that unusual. I came here, excuse me, to go to school, to finish school. I started school in Southern California, 1961, and because I was trying to be a baseball player, I quit school to try to see if I could get me a minor league contract from somebody. And in talking with a couple of teams and trying to see if I could get a little money, I got drafted in the Army because I had quit school. It was during the Vietnam era, and I was sent to Colorado. Well, first Louisiana for a couple of weeks, and then to Colorado for basic training. I was there for a year. And then that was in November. Next November, I went to Korea. Two hard places to go for a kid from L.A. who goes to Colorado in November, the dead of winter, or the beginning of winter, and then goes to Korea the next winter, because those are two of the closest places. Over there, the two coldest places I've ever been in my life. I've never gotten warm since I was there 50 years ago, freezing. And so, and interestingly enough, I don't believe I would have ever left Los Angeles, because, you know, in the 50s and by the time I left, when I was there, LA was a great place for a kid to grow up. All my friends were there, my life was there, and people I knew just didn't leave, and I probably wouldn't have left. But because of the Army, I left and saw there was another world besides LA. And when I got out of the Army, I wanted to go to school, finish school. I met a guy in the Army. We became very good friends, and he got out of the Army before I did, and he remembered that one of the things that we thirsted for in the Army, some of us, it was literature. reading stuff, but good reading stuff. And he remembered that, so every now and then he would send me a reading care package, he and my mother. My mother would always put something to read in with the cookies. She would send me warm sweaters, not realizing that in Korea, we weren't allowed to wear civilian clothes outside in those days. Like in the States and nowadays, you could put on your civvies and go downtown. You couldn't do that. You had to be in uniform all the time. But she would, so he sent me literature. And in the literature, he included some San Francisco State newspapers. But more importantly, in those days, San Francisco had a literary magazine called Open Process. And he sent me some of those, and they were so interesting. And the subjects that they were tackling were subjects that were relevant at the time, whether they were concerning civil rights, liberation, the Vietnam War, and those kinds of things I was interested in. And then I probably shouldn't say this, but you got to remember, this is 1967. And things weren't as they are now. There was no internet. And he sent me a magazine, one of the magazines. On the cover was a full frontal nude. And that was unheard of in those days. And I decided that's probably the school I wanted to go to. So I decided, so I came here to go to State College. And I just never left. And I will say I never left because the San Francisco that was here when I got here was not the San Francisco that I know now. It wasn't the same city. Now let me, a caveat in that. I do know that frequently the good old days seem so good because we were so young. So we can't, get that mixed up. But that aside, I do believe that that time in San Francisco was far better. First of all, we talk a lot of stuff now, but it was a far more diverse cities. While we still have all of those various nationalities and ethnicities here, the one ethnicity that we don't have here in large number anymore is African Americans. And Doc, and I want to say this, I hope people can take it in the spirit that I mean it, and I don't mean it to put anybody else down. But the reality is, man, when you take black people out of the city, you take the soul out, man. The music scene certainly is not what it was then because you no longer have the black-owned music clubs. You don't have all the great black musicians that used to be here. I remember them, a lot of them are older now, but I remember folk packing up going to New York and even LA. Because one, there was more work. Two, they felt they were treated better. And because this city racially took a turn that just was not and is not healthy racially when it comes to African Americans. And there are so many indications of that if one just opens one's eyes. I'm always pleased. I act like I feel like I won the lottery every time I go in a restaurant in San Francisco and I see black folk working in there. I feel like, oh God, I done hit the lottery. We were at a place called Brazil yesterday, which is the old bistro at the top of Nordstrom's. And they had a brother and sister working in there. Man, we was flexing. We had saying a farewell for one of the employees we work with, and she leaving. And we were there, and it was a large table. And one of them told me, I feel good when I see y'all. I said, you said, it's great when we have a group of my people in here. And that's not putting down, that's not to suggest you don't love other folk. I got a whole lot of folk that don't look like me ethnically, that I'm deeply in love with as friends. But the reality is, it's good to see your own people. There's a comfortableness that all of us deserve to have. And so that's the most disappointing thing to me about this San Francisco. And I guarantee you, if we still had that, San Francisco would be a much better city. So I got here, got to State College. It was in the back of my mind, even though I was 24 and getting kind of old for it, I might give baseball one more shot. But I got to State College and the student strike had just been called. And we marched off campus. Campus was closed down for right at 5 months. And we protesting the fact that students there had demanded a Black Studies department, along with some other changes that they had demanded. And after saying yes, the department then said no. The school, rather, the administration, stabbed us in the back over the summer and decided that there was nothing academically valid about a Black Studies department. And that's what set the students off. And you need to know that the concept of Black Studies as a field of study in American universities, that was conceived at San Francisco State. The first call for a department. Now, we didn't really get the department implemented as soon as some others because of the resistance. And you have to know that at that time, that was the Ronald Reagan era, which, contrary to what white folks would tell us, we know that it was one of the most backwards periods when it came to civil rights, Black progress and achievement. It was not only the beginning of the turn down in race relations, sending that on a downward spiral that we experience today, but equally as important, it was the beginning of a denigration and a downturn in intellectuality, where bettering yourself, becoming better educated, all of a sudden became a bad thing. And that now the more ignorant of a front that you can present now means the more American you are. And that is so inherently dangerous, as far as I'm concerned, that it's pretty painful if one starts to look around at what's happening. So I got out there at State, and if you were part of BSU, you had to be assigned to work in different areas in the community, because our desire for the BSU and our desire for the Black Studies Department was that we not become an ivory tower, a traditional ivory tower discipline or an ivory tower campus organization, but that we would be in touch with the indigenous communities of San Francisco. So you got assigned to those communities. And quite frankly, many of us who were there during the strike have deep concerns of the direction that department was changed its name to Africana Studies, which, I'm not crazy about, but that's not a make or break for me. But that it is now, but that they don't have that connection with the community. Well, our desire was to know you couldn't graduate with a degree in Black Studies. We thought should be unless you have amassed a certain amount of hours working in some capacity in the Black community, or if you were in ethnic studies in the Asian community or wherever, whatever you were getting your degree in, you should have be involved in the community. You think of the energy of the Black students at San Francisco State. If they were lending that energy, expertise, and that learning to nonprofit organizations like the one in which we sit right now, if they were bringing those skills to bear, if Black students who are majoring in the creative arts in San Francisco had to be involved here to get a degree, how much better would we be? How much better would the community be? The children and seniors and other citizens who run in and out of this place, if they had contact with all that kind of energy. So that's a concern that we still have about the Black Studies Department. But that was the direction we thought it should go in. And what our desire was, at least I should say mine was, is that if that was implemented, that over time other traditional departments of studies at San Francisco State would see that community connection and start to implement it, whether it was in architecture or whatever the discipline was that people were studying, that they would require that they be involved in the community. And that all that energy that sit on our university campuses all over the country would then start being poured into the community. And, you know, we would see an amazing number of things change if that was encouraged. Because then, if you start doing that, then every one of those departments will ultimately then have to start focusing on ethics. And I believe one of the greatest crimes that we're experiencing now is that universities don't do much in the way of teaching ethics for whatever major someone has.
The project is so important because it creates intergenerational connections. It highlights and features the stories of those we may not ever get a chance to hear from. And far too often we lose the stories from our seniors. And so I'm really proud that there's a bridge being created between the Bayview Hunters Point and the Fillmore District, the Western Addition, where our seniors get to come together, speak proudly about their legacy, about their pathways here, be it the Great Migration or they were born and raised here in the Bay Area. I'm really proud to also know that they get to see a portraiture of themselves created by a world-famous, world-class artist, William Rhodes. I'm also proud to know that this was a project that has allowed them to come together and share their stories. So when you walk in the Sergeant Johnson Gallery, the legacy that this space holds is that we are a container of stories. We are a container of legacy. We are a container of beauty. We are committed to Black joy.
I'm really hoping, and my true desire is for people to understand that this is a community that needs to be looked at. Many times, seniors, in particular African American seniors, are overlooked, devalued. But they have so much rich history, so many rich stories, and I want people to really partake in that and really see this value. Also to know that this is a historical document.